that's actually something I'm personally excited for in the future. It's multi-agent collaboration, agents testing each other's work, and agents trying to jailbreak other agents, and agents trying to find fault in other agents. That it kind of creates an emerging intelligence. It's self-optimizing as well, and it's much better than just a single model that we use. It finds the cracks in different models and it creates solutions by itself.
I'm Nick Dyment, and this is the Electric Mindset.
You want to be the person in the room who asks the most questions.
There's no shortage of problems to tackle.
Where's the change part? Where's the people part you talked about?
This is going to be one of those moments of like history that we're going to look back on.
Welcome back to the Electric Mindset. I'm your host, Nick Dyment, Chief of Staff at Electric Mind, an AI-forward consulting firm driving the future of digital transformation. With me today, I got Duke Osei. Duke, happy to have you, man.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, perfect. Duke's an implementation consultant in the platforms business. He knows way too much about Salesforce and ServiceNow, the latter of which I think we're going to focus on today. We're talking some AI, talking basic organizational change, just a lot of cool stuff going on in the world. And you're on the forefront of it. So thanks for coming on.
Excited to share what I've learned about ServiceNow, especially with their AI orchestration tool. Lots of companies are adopting AI agents and they need to do it in a safe and responsible way. And I think ServiceNow is the best platform to let that happen.
All right. Well, fair. But before we get into that, we want to know a little bit about you.
Sure.
Trying to think of interesting questions to ask. I would say, Duke, for you, outside of your love for ServiceNow and dressing sharply, what else are you into? What are some of your hobbies?
That's a good question. I like games. I like to play video games. Growing up, I've always been a gamer. Watching my older brother play video games that I couldn't play, something that made me want to play video games more. So I ended up in the competitive video game scene.
Sweet.
Yeah, in my past life, and I ended up being a streamer, playing on, posting on YouTube, posting highlights, edits, montages. So that's a bit about me in my past life. Today, I've given up the professional gaming, and I've more so switched to mobile gaming. So I know a lot of people sleep on people who play mobile games, but they're just retired.
Okay.
Pro gamers.
Yeah. Well, you hung up. Was it a keyboard and mouse or a controller? What are you hanging up?
Both at one point.
Okay.
A gamer has to find it their way. So when our console wasn't working, I ended up using an old laptop, and we would find video games online, pirate it, and play them.
Yeah.
So I ended up learning how to play on mouse and keyboard.
Okay.
As well as on console, but primarily console.
That's cool. Well, maybe that was do you think that that's responsible in any way for why you got into technology consulting?
Yeah, absolutely. I started video editing, which was very fun. And through that, I started exploring my laptop. So I learned, I taught myself C++ back when I was, I think, 14.
Wow.
And Java and Python. I can't code anymore, by the way, but that was my first introduction to coding and just technology in general. I've always been interested in technology, and it was a natural fit continuing that in my work. Even though I studied business, which is interesting.
Well, I mean, that's a good combination. You got a tech background. You're gamers who like to have fun.
Yeah.
You're a streamer, so you probably, this is a comfortable setup for you maybe over here with the mic and everything.
It's been a long time.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back into the Vogue. So, maybe going into the career part, right? So you said you studied business and now you're into AI and transformation. How did you make that happen?
Yeah. So I started my career 3 years ago, and naturally I ended up in some of the biggest transformation projects here in Canada, and seeing the impact that those projects made for the company and how important they, took those projects made me realize that's going to be the future of just business, is the emerging technologies that are coming out. How I got into AI is it's my director, Azim. He told me that OSFI is changing their new, policies, and banks are going to need GRC specialists, governance, risk, and compliance specialists. So I started exploring that world in ServiceNow, and I saw that ServiceNow can govern AI agents,
Okay.
which is, it sounds boring, but that sounds exciting to me because I love finding ways of making work easier, but I know the risks that are involved with AI. So having something to govern AI and, add those guardrails to allow us to actually explore AI makes a world of a difference for where AI is going. And being on that frontier to actually help usher that in sounds like the future to me. So
All right.
I never turned back since.
You're trying to create a safe future. I like that.
Yeah.
Now, for people that are watching or listening, agentic AI agents gets thrown around a lot. Maybe in your words, what do you see as the difference between AI and AI agents?
Yeah, that's a great question. So traditional AI has been around for a long time. Think of a calculator, for example. It takes simple inputs like numbers in a predefined format, and it spits out an accurate output. But you can put any number in there, any formula in there, any syntax in there. It's going to solve that problem for you. So that's the traditional AI model. It's take an input and it spits out a fairly accurate output. Now we have this very powerful technology called generative AI. Generative AI is special because the inputs that it takes in are large data sets of structured or unstructured data. So think pictures or sound, music, or even essays. It can take that data set and learn patterns from it, understand that data set, and generate variable outputs. So it can come up with poems, it can come up with stories, it can come up with things that we prompt it to come up with using the existing data sets that it's learned from. It's very powerful, but it doesn't even touch the surface. So agentic AI is where things get very interesting. It takes the foundation of traditional AI and generative AI, and it builds on top of it. So when you give it a prompt, it can understand the prompt, it can create tasks and subtasks from the prompt, and it can actually execute that prompt. So within the given environment that it's built for, without any human intervention. So you can tell it, hey, I want you from now on to issue credit loans. And it knows everything, all of the steps, all of the workflows that a human might take, 2 weeks to do, and it can do it immediately. That's the power of agentic AI.
Yeah, the power. And I can see if I had a bot that was paying all my bills, how that would be helpful.
Yep.
But I could also, you're talking about governance. I can see how that could be scary, right? Or need some sort of, watchman. So talk about AI governance then a little bit.
Let's take a step back. What is governance? Governance is simply control. Imagine you hire an intern, and the intern is supposed to do something very important. Without any training, without a manager, without any accountability of what they do or how they do it, they're going to go in your company and wreck things. And so they need to be governed. They need to have a manager. They need someone to be accountable for them.
Makes sense.
Same with an agent. Agentic AI has agency. It can do things without human nudging, without human interception, for example. So we need to make sure that they're doing things that align with our business objectives, our business goals, and align with any regulatory objectives that the company needs to follow, especially when they're operating in environments like finance, HR, or using customer data.
Yeah.
So governance is putting those guardrails in front of the agents, making sure they're operating within their boundaries. It's putting visibility into all of the agents that are available for the client or for companies. It's making sure there's continuous improvement as well. So it monitors if the AI is drifting from its original goal, from the output that we want it to produce. And it's making sure the AI is working for you and it's not going rogue. That's what governance does for agentic AI.
It sounds like it's an approach to try and allay some of the risk, or maybe not allay, but to understand and make transparent and obvious some of these risks, because with great power comes great responsibility.
I'd ask you, what are some of the things, I'm sure you've had conversations with clients. What are some of the common fears around AI?
Yeah. So just AI itself, really in the model space, the main one is what's going to happen with my data. Let's say I'm using a cloud model. I'm using ChatGPT or I'm using Sonnet. I'm doing something where it's going over the wire. What's happening with the information that I'm sending? And what is that company doing with it? I think that the players in the game are doing a better job being transparent.
Yeah.
You know, the free tier, we're doing whatever we want with it. It's free. That's you're paying me with your data. Enterprise tiers, we promise not to use your data for our training set. So that fear is there.
Yeah.
Second one is what do I do with the outputs? What if there's copyright information in there? What if I'm being given the answer to a question that is copywritten or that is somehow proprietary, and then I'm using that? Like, what's the risk for me there? You know, in the development space, the agentic part of AI is more maybe on the local machine, and so the concerns aren't there. Like, it's pretty handy rather than give me the answer to a code problem. Well, why don't you just make the change yourself and restart the program? So the risks aren't quite there at the same level it would be, like you said, you know, finance, legal, like some of these other domains where, if you're approving loans and you go rogue, that could be pretty bad, right?
Yeah, but those kinds of scenarios do have a lot of productivity gain.
Totally.
And, you know, take a compliance officer, they can't possibly look at all the transactions that are taking place. And so having a tool that can, you know, check which transactions are, you know, outside of the policies that they've been given is a massive help for especially the compliance officer. But then the risks involved are, where's the data going? Is it a single tenant unit? Does the data get outside of the environment that it's working in or the organization that it's limited to, really? And because it has agency, it can do things, it can take action. Will it take actions that are against our policies, against our... So that's where we have to put some seatbelts on, some pedals, installing them, and maybe putting a human in the middle of a lot of these actions that that it can do. So that's where my thinking goes to. Yeah. But I love the impact that it makes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the promise is there, and how we use it is kind of up to each organization and their risk appetite, which, you know, what are you seeing that organizations are doing to implement some of this governance in their, for themselves?
Yeah. So something interesting is there's a lot of push from outside bodies to govern AI, especially high risk AI. The EU AI Act, it was released in August of 2024, and it looks at high risk AI agents. It looks at high risk AI agents that operate in high risk functions within the organizations, and it essentially tells companies to make sure that there's compliance monitoring going on in however you're using the software. Make sure there's visibility on how it reaches its decisions. So going back to Agentic AI, it builds on top of generative AI. So generative AI can give you the steps to reach a decision without actually doing the decision. Agentic AI can still give you its reasoning why it made a decision, and that decision needs to be logged into an audit log for regulators to see how did it reach said decision. So for example, diagnosing patients.
Sure.
That's, you want to make sure that the agent knows how it reached that decision before it misdiagnoses patients. If you were ever to use AI to diagnose a patient, which, that's up to the company's risk culture. So they're taking advice from regulatory bodies. The EU AI Act is one that has inspired a lot of companies to put these guardrails in place. And then we have companies like ServiceNow who are coming out with AI orchestrators to help manage AI agents. So companies have access to using these softwares and governing their AI agents. there are frameworks out there, and they're looking to these regulatory bodies and these platforms that already govern their governance, risk, and compliance modules.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense because we're, in the market, you're getting a lot of push, like on TV, there's companies that are going to try and sell you AI agents, all the big players, Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, Amazon.
Yeah.
They want a piece of that pie, right?
Yeah.
The technology is there, and it's just trying to find a shape and a format and a message, I think, to get to reach adoption. And so what you're saying is there are some tools out there, including one from ServiceNow, that can then orchestrate, like give me some visibility. Like, so how would I use that if I'm, I'm a leader in the bank, let's say I work in the compliance department, or I want to say yes to this, I like productivity gains. I'm a business, capitalism, love it, right? But I also don't want to make the front page of the news for having biased hiring or accidentally firing everybody, or you know what I mean, making a bad mistake. So how could I, use some of that tool to help me out?
Yeah, I would describe ServiceNow AI orchestrator as, I like this analogy. So an organization is an airport.
Okay.
The agents are the planes, and their employees are the pilots. The airport needs to make sure all the planes fly at scheduled times so they don't crash into each other, and they need trained employees to fly those planes. And ServiceNow is essentially the control tower.
Okay.
So they have all the details on the flight schedules. They know every single plane's fuel capacity, and it knows which planes are decommissioned, which planes are due for maintenance, which planes are in flight right now. It has all of that data in a centralized location, and that's how they're able to make sure that your flight isn't delayed. And everyone hates delayed flights.
Yeah, super hate delayed flights.
So that's why they're necessary. And obviously, flights not crashing, but mostly delayed flights.
Yeah.
That's how I like to look at it. So there are really 5 pillars to governing agentic AI. I'll stop there. We can get into the 5 pillars, but what do you think of that analogy so far?
I mean, it makes sense to me as someone who's kind of going to airports a decent amount of time, and I can understand just the complexity, right? You're kind of describing a pretty complex system, and a big organization is a complex system too. And how do you keep it all straight? Especially maybe not today. I mean, I'm sure there are early mover organizations that are really leaned into agentic AI and trying to find use cases that work for them. And just as I know, there's some people waiting to go second, let these people learn and we'll pick up the lessons. And then there's always going to be, the laggards, more conservative folks out there. But, if you're a Fortune 50 company or TSX 60, you got thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of employees, and you start rolling that out at scale, it's going to get hairy pretty quick. Like if you, again, I'm on the fence about whether I want to personify AI agents or not, but if you treat them like headcount, you could see a headcount explosion at some of these orgs. So there needs to be an answer.
Yeah. And so that's why companies need a firm foundation with dealing with any incident that might arise with AI. And so these 5 pillars kind of capture that.
Okay. Let's get into it. What are they? I'm curious.
Okay. First is you need to identify your AI agents. You need full visibility. You need to do a check of what systems, softwares, vendors do we use that have AI agents. And they need to be captured separately as a configuration item or an IT asset.
Okay.
Companies that use ServiceNow will capture it within their configuration management database, CMDB for short. And once it's captured, it's given an owner who is going to be responsible for that agent. It's given a scope. It's given a release date. It's even given a rollback plan. If updates fail, it needs to go back to its previous version. And it's given all the details that a regular IT asset is going to get. And that gives visibility to your agent. And that's the first key for just even considering using AI agents. You don't want any agents going under the shadow because, again, they have agency.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have software that can do something that could cause, I don't know, reputational harm or anything, I guess, really, you want to know what it is. You want visibility into what that is. Yeah. Makes sense.
Makes sense. So the second is it needs to be attached to a policy.
Okay.
AI agents cannot go rogue. That's the last thing you want it to do.
Yeah. I mean, they can go rogue. You don't want them to go rogue.
We don't want them to go rogue, and they cannot go rogue.
Right.
It's too powerful of a technology for it to go rogue.
Yeah.
So with CMDB, it being captured as a configuration item, you can, in ServiceNow, attach a policy object to it. And that policy object puts guardrails on its actions, and it puts limitations to what it can do.
Okay.
So it acts within an environment, within a box, and that keeps it from doing things you don't want it to do. That's the second key.
Yep.
To attach policies.
Okay. All right. So that's two. How many? 5 pillars. What's the third one?
Third is you want to log its inputs, its outputs, its decisions, and its actions. You want to log everything that has to do with it as it's running real time.
Okay.
This is important for 2 reasons. The first, you want visibility into its metrics. If you look at something like model risk, they get their metrics printed out daily to see if there's any model drift or credit risks. And you can build on the foundation that companies are already using. Companies use ServiceNow for governance, risk, and compliance. And they print out these dashboards that check the health of their models that they use for whatever that they're using it for. And you want to treat AI agents the same way. Whatever inputs, outputs, and data that it's producing, it should be tracked. The second reason is so that you can set alerts, and you can put human in the loop functions into it. So you've given it a guardrail, but if it decides to drift outside of that guardrail, how are we going to know unless you track what it's doing? And once ServiceNow sees that it's going outside that guardrail, it can actually alert a human, it can shut it down, or it can create an incident and say that there's a problem here. So that's the third key, track what it's doing.
Yeah. I kind of drawing analogies to, people management in a sense, right? Like you're working with someone and you've given them a job to do. You want to make sure they stay within the confines of that job and get some status reports. Okay. I'm making sense to me here. So then pillar 4.
So pillar 4 is really where, companies can exercise and flex their ITIL muscles.
Okay.
ITSM muscles as well. Their change, incident, and problem management. Once, if a model does go astray, if an agent goes astray and an alert needs to be set, it can automatically trigger a change request or an incident report, which when it's being tracked in CMDB, we already know what data it's affecting, which applications it touches, so we can see what applications would be affected by this as well. We know who is responsible for the agent, and so we can go to that person and get accountability for the agent. We can get to a root cause of the problem quickly. So we're using what companies already do with their ITSM, issue management, problem management, incident management, change management. With AI. That way, an issue doesn't just appear without it being solved.
Yeah, and if you are on team personification of these things, then that's going to go on as permanent record. So
to make sure.
So the Nick bot is -1 for going out of bounds.
Yeah, but because you have incident management in place,
right,
you can shut it down, and it wouldn't have to destroy your reputation.
Well, what I like about that is, I'd say all companies of a decent size have their own change management policies. They track, the root cause analysis. There is a well-trodden path there for applications. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're not saying that stuff has to change. You're just kind of adding these AI agents into the mix.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. And they're treated like any other IT asset with, the special feature that they have agency. So they are doing things without human intervention. That's why it's very important that incident management, change management, security alerts are configured when they if it catches something that's going astray.
Makes sense. So then pillar 5, is that profit?
Well, everyone's going to reap the benefits of agentic AI once they have a foundation set. But the final pillar is the orchestration of agents.
Got it.
So most companies are probably not going to use ServiceNow for all of their agents. They're probably going to use other third-party agents. ServiceNow, fortunately, can, through their API policy communication with other softwares, they can get other agents from third-party software vendors into their configuration management database.
Okay.
And they can attach policies to them as well. So it can orchestrate when agents act in a sequence, and it can capture all of the data in one dashboard, and it'll print out that dashboard for you daily so you can check the health of your agents. And it makes sure things are done in sequence as well. So if a policy or if the licenses are expiring, it can put in a change request for you automatically, and it can go through the change board, and you can have that agent go through UAT, through an upgrade, and then redeployed. So it keeps everything in check. It keeps everything healthy. It keeps your company running smoothly.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot like things that I know from other places in, software development and management.
Yep.
It sounds like talking about, observability, discoverability, traceability.
Yep.
And I know we've had a bunch of projects where either a company wants to put all their logs from a bunch of different applications into something like a, Splunk or Kibana or somewhere where they can get all of the logs, or you want to maybe add some telemetry, use open telemetry to really understand the health of my applications, regardless of I built it, you built it, we bought it from someone else. So that's pretty cool that the ServiceNow product works with other agents. Like it's not just we got to stick with our team.
Yeah, and we're in the 21st century. We need APIs to connect to each other. So this is a natural fit for ServiceNow.
All right, so I'm following along, Duke. You're explaining, your airport analogy and the 5 pillars, and I'm kind of rolling with you. But I like real world examples.
Yep.
So make this real for me. How do you get this? Put this into action?
Sure. So let's go back to our compliance officer example.
Okay.
Say you're a portfolio compliance officer, and your job is just to make sure that all the security trades that are being made in the company follow policy. That's a very complicated job, and you can't possibly catch all the security trades. So what do? You go to your boss and you say, hey, I see this company, they use agentic AI to check every single securities trade, and it identifies trades that go outside of policy. I think we should invest in this. So they say that's a great idea. That'll save us a lot of costs. That'll save you a lot of time to do more strategic work. And we want to go ahead. Where do you start? First thing is you need visibility.
Yep.
You need to track that agent as a configuration item. And you need to know that it has agency. It can do things without your permission. It'll act by itself. So that's tracking it as a configuration item.
Okay.
Next is you want to attach your bespoke business objectives, and you want to attach regulatory regulations to that agent. So depending on the country you're in, depending on the state or the province that you're in, you're going to have unique policies, regulations that you need to follow. You want that to be attached to the agent so the agent stays within those boundaries. And you want to have human in the loop interventions for that agent. So as a portfolio compliance manager, you want to make sure that trades that are above a certain amount, before you flag it as, a breaching policy, send them through me. And so you can review if it's breaching policy, and like it can be fairly accurate if you give it the right policies. Next, you want to make sure that it logs how it came to its decision by logging its inputs, its decisions, and its outputs. That way you have an audit trail, because it's a very heavily regulated industry. You need to track how things are done and what's being done, what's being signed off, what's not being signed off. So it can give you an audit trail that cannot be edited, which can be stored in ServiceNow's rule engine as well. And that way regulators are happy, customers are happy. Third, if there are incidents where your agent gives you a trade that doesn't make sense, you can attach incident change and problem management, ITSM management tools to it. So it can immediately spin up an incident. It immediately goes to the tech team. The tech team take a look at the agent. They say, well, this policy wasn't specified with this kind of trade, and they can, put it, decommission it.
Figure it out. Yeah.
So if you have those alertings in place, 95% of the issues and risks that are involved with, having these agents on board working for you can be mitigated.
Okay.
But your companies are probably not going to use just one agent. They're probably going to look at multiple agents that work together. And so with ServiceNow, you can orchestrate all of those in one, software. Make sure that they're all stored at the same place. The right policies are attached to them. The right owners are given to them. And you can get a health check, a dashboard with all of the different agents that are working for you in your company. So that's how the conversation should look like.
Okay.
Hey, this agent is going to work for me, but here are the guardrails I'm putting on them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Could you take it one step further? And I have, agents that are watching my agents, or agents that are looking at my tickets, the incidents that are being created?
Yeah, so that's actually something I'm personally excited for in the future. It's multi-agent collaboration, agents testing each other's work, and agents trying to jailbreak other agents, and agents trying to find fault in other agents. That it kind of creates an emerging intelligence. It's self-optimizing as well. And it's much better than just a single model that we use. It finds the cracks in different models, and it creates solutions by itself.
Yeah, and it can go pretty fast. It kind of sounds like a scaled up kind of a GANs idea with this multi-agent future. That's pretty wild. Do you wish that you had AI agents that would help you get better at games back in the day?
Oh man, I did. I tried to do everything I could to get an advantage. So with my controllers, I would have like optimized joysticks, everything that pushed the limit without cheating. So if we did have, I'd probably think of an AI training bot that could train my aim. It could develop lessons. It could analyze my gameplay and show me what I need to do, how I can train my fingers to get better.
Yeah, so that would train you to be better in the game.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. That's a pretty great idea, and shows you're an honest man.
Exactly, yeah.
What you love here.
I want to go up to a competition without my agent, having the skills of my agent. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, so maybe a question before we go to the lightning round here.
Yep.
So we're talking about kind of a new way of working a little bit, but not too new, given the examples that you had. But basically, how can I slide AI agents into a framework and structure that I'm familiar with, assuming I'm a company here?
Yeah.
What role do you see a company culture playing in maybe the ability to take advantage of all these new tools?
Oh, a big role. Company culture, essentially, it sets either your company encourages you to seek out responsible ways to use AI agents, or the communication instead brings fear about AI and prevents you from even touching AI agents. Companies, it's without a doubt, AI is the next technology transformation revolution, however you want to put it.
Yep.
And so closing your eyes and pretending like it's not there is probably not the solution. But if you do have a risk averse approach to it, but you're not saying no to it, that's probably going to work best in the long run. We will have a cultural shift with the idea of AI when if a large technology company or a large bank has a horrible error because of AI, there will be a big movement to govern AI and make sure that it's safe and it can be used. But I think ultimately that will be a good thing. We've seen this in the financial world where large banks have given out credits to people that might not have needed it or weren't credit worthy. AI could do the same thing, the same mistakes that the banks made. And then those regulations are going to come in and banks are going to be a little bit more responsible, but they're going to know that, hey, we still have to be in the game. We still have to use this technology.
Yeah. Well, what you're describing, at least what I'm hearing here, is that there is a way to be more risk averse and still take advantage of some of these tools by putting some good controls in.
Yeah.
And there's some tools out there that can help with that.
It starts with visibility and transparency, accountability. If you have those three, you're set to start looking at agents working for you. Without even having agents in the conversation, it's hard to look at agents as a potential future for you.
Yeah, very cool. Before we wrap up, is there anything you wanted to share or say that I didn't prompt you for?
Sure, yeah. What's something that you would love for AI to do in your day-to-day?
My laundry.
Yeah.
Would be a really good one. I think I have always wanted to just have my life perfectly soundtracked. So I think it would be pretty cool to have AI learn what music would put me in the right mood for the right situation. I love music.
You're a music person?
Yeah. And I know that I've played around with tools. AI can generate songs. I can make a playlist for me. But that context awareness of I'm walking down the street and it's sunny. I want a type of music. I'm walking down the street and it's raining. I want a different type of music. So that's what I want. Wow. What about you, Duke? What do you want?
I'd love for AI to do my timesheets.
Okay. Dude, I would take that too.
I always forget. I have a reminder on my phone. Hey, it's Friday. Do your timesheets. But even then, sometimes I'm in such a rush. So if AI could, see how many hours I opened my laptop for and just sent out my timesheet, that would be great.
Someone's got to have that solution. If you do, I don't know, hit us up in the comments or whatever on the podcast.
I mean, we could build that.
Not a bad idea too.
We could use the same principles.
I like it.
With the same guardrails. If you work weekends, it doesn't track it. And
all right. Well, maybe an idea. We got a hackathon coming in the summer, so maybe that could be a good target.
Wow. When does this podcast release?
I don't know. Yeah, who knows? Maybe it'll be done by then. It's a good one.
It could save Rihanna some headache.
Yeah, I know she wouldn't have to yell at us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a great chat, but before we go, I got to hit you with the lightning round.
Yep.
I'm going to do a quick question. I'm looking for a brief answer.
Okay.
All right. So, question number 1, what's one AI trend you're keeping an eye on right now?
AI trend. Multi-agent collaboration.
Okay. Where do you think we'll be in 3 years with this stuff?
Just as scrutinized as finance.
Okay. And maybe what's one thing that you've read or listened to that's shaped your thinking on AI?
My director, Azim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Perfect. Well, Duke, thanks a million for coming in here.
Thank you for having me.
Talking some shop about AI and agents and how we can keep everybody safe and yet still use them. So
yes.
My pleasure. That's the Electric Mindset. I'm your host, Nick at electricmind.com. If you want to email me, electricmind.com if you want to learn about the company. Duke, how do people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm friendly.
Okay.
I like to post sometimes.
Okay.
Hopefully you find it interesting.
All right. Well, that's perfect. Well, thanks again for tuning into the Electric Mindset. I'm Nick. Stay bold, stay curious. The future's bright.